Most people are waiting. Waiting to feel ready. Waiting to feel confident. Waiting for the fear to disappear before they take the first step. But there is a different kind of person, studied quietly in psychology, who does not wait. They feel the same fear, the same doubt, the same uncertainty tightening in their chest, and they move anyway. They are exhausted, yet they show up. They feel alone, yet they continue. Not because they are fearless, but because something inside them has shifted. They are not extraordinary by nature. They are ordinary people who developed a different relationship with resistance. When researchers studied people who built something meaningful from nothing, entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, survivors of loss, they did not find talent as the deciding factor. They found a pattern. A willingness to move through discomfort repeatedly. Angela Duckworth called it grit. Not intensity, but consistency. Not motivation, but persistence when motivation disappears. Fear is always the first barrier. Most people misunderstand it completely. They believe confidence comes first, that action follows certainty. But Susan Jeffers found the opposite. The people who acted were not less afraid. They simply stopped treating fear as a stop sign. Beneath every fear sits a deeper belief that you will not be able to handle what comes next. Not fear of failure, but fear of your own inability to survive it. And the moment that belief begins to crack, something changes. Joseph Ledoux showed that the brain does not wait for your permission. The amygdala fires instantly. It signals danger whether the threat is real or imagined. You cannot silence it, but you can override it. The prefrontal cortex steps in when you act. Even a small step shifts the balance. This is how fear weakens, not through thinking, but through movement. Each time you move forward and nothing breaks, the brain updates. You survived. That matters. The fear does not vanish, but it loses authority. Over time, action becomes easier than avoidance. Not because fear is gone, but because your system has learned you can carry it. The first step feels impossible. The 10th feels manageable. Eventually, it becomes familiar. The people who do it scared did not remove fear. They trained their nervous system to walk with it. And that changes everything. Then comes fatigue, quieter but more dangerous. Not burnout, not collapse, but that slow, draining feeling that whispers doubt. The kind of tired that makes everything feel heavier than it should. This is where most people stop. Roy Baumeister spent years studying why. He found that willpower is not endless. It behaves like a muscle. It weakens with use. The more decisions you make, the harder it becomes to keep choosing the difficult path. Late in the day, resistance fades. Discipline slips. The brain defaults to comfort. It says stop. And most people listen. But there is a difference in those who continue. They attach meaning to the effort. Viktor Frankl understood this deeply. He saw that when a person has a clear reason, suffering changes shape. It becomes bearable, even purposeful. The brain does not just respond to reward, it responds to direction. When you know why you are doing something, even exhaustion carries weight differently. It becomes evidence, not punishment. The tiredness stops being a signal to quit and becomes a sign that you are engaged in something that matters. Dopamine shifts. It fires not only at success, but at progress towards something meaningful. This is why two people can feel the same fatigue and react differently. One stops, the other continues. The difference is not strength, it is meaning. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi found something similar in his study of flow. Deep engagement does not remove effort, it absorbs it. When challenge meets skill, the mind narrows, discomfort fades into the background. Time shifts. The work becomes the focus, not the strain. The people who keep going are not ignoring exhaustion, they are reinterpreting it. They are building an identity inside it. Each time they continue while tired, they reinforce something internal. This is who I am. And that identity becomes stronger than the feeling. Fatigue still exists, but it no longer decides. And over time, something subtle but powerful begins to happen. The resistance that once felt overwhelming starts to feel familiar. The mind stops negotiating with discomfort and starts expecting it. What once required discipline begins to feel like default behavior. And in that shift, consistency is no longer forced, it becomes who you are. And then there is solitude, the most misunderstood force of all. Most people fear being alone with their thoughts. The silence feels heavy. The absence of validation feels threatening. The brain interprets isolation as danger, but some people learn to stay. Donald Winnicott described this as the capacity to be alone. Not loneliness, but stability within oneself. The ability to exist without needing constant reflection from others. To work without applause. To continue without being seen. This is rare, but it can be built. Esther Buchholz argued that solitude is not optional, it is necessary. A space where identity forms without interference, where clarity deepens, where the noise fades enough for something real to emerge. The person who continues alone is not lacking connection. They are developing independence from it. And over time, something shifts. The internal voice grows louder than the external one. The need for approval weakens. The work becomes enough. When fear, fatigue, and solitude combine, they do more than challenge a person. They reshape them. Albert Bandura called this self-efficacy. Not confidence, but proof. Each time you act despite resistance, you store evidence. Quiet, personal, undeniable evidence that you can handle difficulty. And that evidence compounds. It changes how you see the next challenge. Anders Ericsson showed that growth happens in discomfort. Not in ease, not in perfect conditions, but in struggle. And Carol Dweck found that those who embrace this process do not just improve, they transform. They stop avoiding difficulty and begin using it. Over time, the person becomes harder to stop, not because life becomes easier, but because they become stronger within it. They build an identity rooted in action, not feeling. They develop a nervous system that recovers faster. They gain clarity about who remains when things are hard. And most importantly, they learn they do not need perfect conditions to begin. They are no longer waiting. They are moving, scared, tired, alone, and still moving. And in those quiet moments where no one is watching, something deeper locks into place. A kind of self-trust that cannot be given, only earned. The realization that you can rely on yourself changes how you face everything else. You stop looking outward for permission and start moving from an internal decision. And that shift, more than anything, is what separates those who continue from those who stop. Over time, even the silence begins to feel different. What once felt empty starts to feel focused. The mind becomes less reactive, more deliberate. You begin to notice that clarity grows in the absence of noise. And slowly, solitude stops feeling like something you endure and starts becoming something you choose. Now tell me, which of the three forces are you pushing through right now? Fear, fatigue, alone. I read every single one. And if this is the kind of psychology breakdown you are here for, subscribe.